Let's listen to what the Rubes are hearing about this cutting of the funding. And let's go to the chief Rube spokesperson, Joe Rogan, of the Joe Rogan Experience. If you are Joe Rogan, how do you opine on something that you have clearly done nothing other than look at one person's Twitter with a guest when you want the sheen of some type of like, oh, he's not just sitting there talking to a comedian about it who's going to be like, dude, I don't know anything about that stuff. He needs to talk to somebody who pretends to be an academic, but also knows nothing and is a little bit crazy and only good at basically making it seem like they know what's going on and that are measured about it. Well, of course, you invite on Brett Weinstein. And this is the conversation they have about USAID spending. Now, let me be clear. The main problem with what's going on with Musk's assault on the USAID is that he is not authorized to do any of this. That if Congress decides they don't want to fund these programs, they should have hearings and they should say, we don't want to fund these programs.
And expose the deep state stuff that you say is there.
Without a doubt. But also understand why they started with USAID. It's because people who don't know anything about how our government spends or what our government does, largely, no, there's some people who have like anti-imperialist arguments against the USAID, which I think in certain circumstances are very valid. People don't want the soft projection of our power. They don't want us to project any power.
I don't think any of those people would immediately pull like medications from people who were served by USAID. At least I would hope they wouldn't.
Exactly. And, but let's be clear, it's also a much better way of projecting power than, say, dropping bombs.
Yep.
Foreign assistance outside of what we've seen in terms of the recent wars is such a minuscule part of our budget. But it's and you could ask 90% of the people how much of our budget goes to foreign aid, and they'll give you some wild number, 5%, 10%, 20%, 30%, 50%, whatever it is. It's like 0.01% of the budget, maybe 1% of the budget. But they feast on it. And so you go for the low-hanging fruit so that you can develop the sort of muscle memory that, yeah, we can go in and just cut this stuff without congressional approval whatsoever. And here is Joe Rogan carrying their water. All of these tech bro brothers hang out in the green room at the Mothership, his comedy space in Austin. So he's just regurgitating whatever they want him to.
This USAID thing that's going on, you know, Mike Benz has been on that like a pit bull, and I've been following him on X, and he's going to come back on here and kind of explain everything. But he explained it the last time he was here, and I don't think I really grasped it until Elon's 6 wizards. They brought in some young wizards to go in there and go over the books, and they are just finding crazy shit. It's great, and it's so interesting. I was listening to a left-wing podcast today. I like to mix it up. You know, I listen to all kinds of different stuff, and it was like I was listening to a different world. Like, they weren't even talking about all of this corruption and all this obvious buying of influence. Instead, they were talking about aid overseas and how people are going to starve, and like
it's mind-boggling. And there's also
pause it for 1 second. I should just tell you that Mike Benz, former State Department guy who worked for the Trump's first term, he worked on cybersecurity and internet policy. And then he was all about the censorship industrial complex.
Oh yeah. What is corruption? I would like Rogan to be even less, like, zoom out, but like, is it a billionaire ransacking our federal government for his own ends? Is that it? Does that constitute corruption?
He supposedly criticizes USAID as going beyond humanitarian aid, influencing foreign governments, and then online discourse, which I'm sure there is some of that as well. Sure, there's some of that. It would be a great thing for Congress to say, we don't want to do that anymore. But
The aid Trump was saying, hey, Venezuela, let this in. Last time he was president, that was USAID.
We could have it. They should have a debate as on the floor of Congress in the next budget. They can decide. Oh, here we don't want to fund this. Let's have an investigation into where USAID is going. But these are funds already approved that are supposed to be going to these agencies.
We should also tell you that NBC News did an investigation which linked him to the pseudonym Frame Game, where he allegedly promoted white identitarian views and conspiracy theories, including the Great Replacement Theory.
That's why these guys are hired.
Interesting. Go ahead.
It's mind-boggling, and there's also, I have to say, I'm upset at the general pattern of a failure to recognize how right those of us who hypothesize.
No, pause it for a second. No, okay. No, listen. So here's Brett Weinstein. No idea. He hasn't read one article on this. And a friend of mine says, like, when I don't know anything about politics, my go-to answer is like, can you believe it? And it always gets, and so that's what he's doing. It's like, it's mind-boggling.
But he's a little bit more different. Can we skip to the part where I get credit for
and then he goes, but in general, not specifically with this, but don't you think I deserve more credit for saying something's weird here? Okay, go ahead.
To recognize how right those of us who hypothesized that there was a racket that had overtaken our entire governance structure, we turn out to be absolutely right about this.
Pause it. We're talking about USAID, which I don't know what tiny percentage of our budget is, but that's the racket across the entire government.
1%, I think.
Incidentally, the military budget is about 1/3 of the budget, like 35%. Go ahead.
Structure. We turn out to be absolutely right about this, and no one's going to mention it. That's mind-blowing.
It's very strange that the media is ignoring it, especially the left-wing media. It's just too big of a win for the right, and so they're just ignoring it. And then they're just highlighting the good things that USA did, which I'm sure it probably did. Probably had to do some good things to like at least justify its existence. While it's
as a cover story, I'm not even sure. Maybe it doesn't change anything. Obviously,
just say that the freeze in USAID has now been the assessment is that like 300 children in Africa have already gotten HIV. Just off the top of my head, like of things. Now, there are definitely people out there, people who probably promote white identitarian views and conspiracy theories, including the Great Replacement Theory, say, well, what responsibility do we have for African kids getting HIV? I mean, it's debatable. It's debatable. We have the most resources. We might want to prevent disease in other countries, but continue here.
I mean, chattel slavery and colonialism is justification enough for giving them.
That's not why we're doing it, though. We're doing it because, like Marco Rubio said 5 years ago, it's hard to get people to hate you when you fed them.
Exactly.
And China is all over the continent of Africa right now, building roads and infrastructure. So now the United States, the dwindling soft power that we have, now this is like basically going out the window.
Sure. Maybe it doesn't change anything. Obviously, this was a mechanism used to funnel money to all sorts of things.
Are you ready for some of these nefarious
we didn't
things?
Vote on that don't make sense in light of our constitutional
Oh, you
structure.
did vote on.
And
pause it.
I'm
the number of things that we get to vote on in terms of the way that our government expends them, that we directly get to vote on, is zero. You want to let me vote on what we're doing with the defense budget? We're not going to talk about that. We're not going to talk about that. What about tax cuts for wealthy people? What about this whole thing where, like, mortgage payments, you get to deduct those? What? What if I'm renting? No, we don't get to vote on that. But now
Makes
it's
sense.
like, where's the vote on providing inoculations to the kids in the third world countries? Where's the vote on that? Go ahead.
money to all sorts of things that we didn't vote on, that don't make sense in light of our constitutional structure. And I obviously have concerns like everybody else about
He doesn't know what he's
where
talking
this
about.
train takes us, but seeing that structure broken up it's a huge relief.
They gave $27 million to the George Soros Prosecutor Fund. So our own government.
Pause it for a second. Hold on for a second. Wait. That seems weird. $27 million to the George Soros Prosecutor Fund? That's a weird name of a fund. George Soros Prosecutor Fund? Let me tell you about the $27 million that went to the George Soros Prosecutor Fund. There is no George Soros Prosecutor Fund. Just keep going on, and then we'll Google this up. I spent 20 minutes.
Do you know what he is referring to?
I have an idea. Go ahead.
Is funding this left-wing lunatic who is hiring the most insane prosecutors who are letting people out of jail who commit violent crimes.
And that's exactly how this racket worked, is that the ability to tax the American public and then effectively...
For those of you who are in fourth grade watching the show, George Soros doesn't hire prosecutors, because prosecutors are hired by the government or they're elected. George Soros doesn't do this. It's possible that some prosecutors running for office get support from some organizations that support that George Soros gives money to, but there is no George Soros Prosecutor Fund. Let's go. I dug into this, right? Pop this up. This is the only thing I could find, was that there was George Soros funds through his scroll down a little bit. It's Open Society Foundations gave, I guess, USAID gave like $270 million to this East-West Management Institute or something to that effect, or programs they were involved in. You scroll down here, and you see all the different other things, but this is considered, because if you Google George Soros gave USAID gave $270 million to George Soros, this is what you get, essentially. The Department of State, the USAID funds it, World Bank, World Resources. This is all like about putting investment into companies, into countries, no doubt. There are going to be like private entities that are going to come in after this stuff and try and build in corporations. But this is not George Soros Prosecutor Fund for the USAID. He's just making this up whole cloth.
Have they heard of the Federalist Society?
I mean, it's just absurd. It's just absurd. And how many millions of people watch this stuff?
Oh my gosh. I mean, enough for him to get more hundreds of millions of dollars from Spotify while he pretends to be the everyman. He's even worse than like corporate media, because he acts like he is a truth teller. And the thing about USAID, which is just fascinating, like what they're trying to do here, they're trying to kill soft power by the United States. When there's no soft power, what's left?
Well, I got news for you. They're just going to come in and they're going to do the exact same damn thing.
No, but my point, though, is that the Trump was running, and there were some people that believed that he was the anti-war guy in comparison to Kamala Harris. And now Biden and Harris made that extremely difficult by, Biden supporting a genocide. But this is like there's no anti-war Republicans. They're isolationists, and who's always going to win the day are the military contractors and the defense industry. So there may be like a Rand Paul or a Mike Lee that thinks like, yeah, we should kill soft power. I don't care about kids in Africa getting AIDS. Let's cut it all, cut it all, cut it all, cut it all. I guarantee you the military industrial complex, the hard power, the contracts that are going to go to Elon Musk that he's developing jets with Boeing, that's going to go up. So it just makes it so that the United States is just a brute military power, which we've already been on the road towards.
None of this is going away. This is all just a fabrication.
I'm just trying to make a point about the lack of sincerity of the anti-war right and how this is the project. It's actually going to funnel more money into the military-industrial complex.
Keep going here. Listen to what he lists.
A lot of
This is what he goes on to list.
is
Yeah.
that the ability to tax the American public and then effectively get us to pay for being propagandized, for being surveilled, that's the game. And I don't know what era we currently live in. Obviously, there's a lot that's confusing about what the Trump administration is up to, but I don't think any reasonable person could be unhappy that we are exiting that era.
I'm going to read off some of the things that this guy Kanakota the Great on Twitter listed.
Oh, good.
And this is off the Jesse Water Show. USAID, $20 million for Iraqi Sesame Street, $2 million
Incidentally,
for...
and I'm just going to take all these at face value for the sake of argument. People may not remember, but the term shock and awe that's going around now is about how we bombed Baghdad and flattened it. We killed, whether you use Defense Department estimates or sort of like partisan estimates, anywhere from several 100,000 innocent Iraqis to 1 million. The idea that we would reinvest to try and sort of like build some semblance of civil society there seems pretty expected. But go ahead, because there's more of this that he has a problem
Can I
with.
just keep people into the dollar amounts we're talking about? $27 million is less than Tyler Hero makes playing for the Miami Heat.
Oh, $20 million is, let's see, he's got a $250 million contract. You're talking about maybe a quarter, annually. Maybe even like 2 months is what this guy makes on this show. But go ahead.
Moroccan pottery classes, $11 million to tell Vietnam to stop burning trash,
Pause it.
$27 million.
It might be pretty valuable for Vietnam to stop burning trash. We got a thing called global warming. But go ahead. And incidentally, we also had a little history in Vietnam too.
The Phoenix program.
Go ahead.
To give gift bags to illegals, $27 million.
Pause it.
300.
The whole gift bag to illegals. Did I put the links in there to that too? No, wait, I didn't. The gift bag to illegal. Oh yeah, here it is. This is reintegration stuff that we are doing, that USAID does. It's not just gift bags. It's stuff for kids to reintegrate as we deport them to these countries and expend money to get these countries to not send back more immigrants to us. It is literally doing the thing that they want to be done, but they want it to be done completely for free. That's in the, incidentally, go to this. Go to that link that I put in there in Slack with the picture of the bag there. This is from 2017. These things took place through the Trump administration, I will have you know. You don't see it in Slack? It's 9:30 a.m. There's a picture of... All right, forget it now. Let's just keep going. But the Department of Homeland Security returned 75,000 migrants to El Salvador. And that from 2014, scroll down here. This is where he's getting this $27 million from. Fiscal year 2017, the Department of Homeland returned 75,000 migrants to El Salvador, and Guatemala, and Honduras. We examined U.S. efforts to help migrants reintegrate into their home countries by helping them reestablish psychological, social, and economic ties. In other words, so that they don't get back on the road and come back up. Since 2014, so over the course of this thing was released in 2018. So over the course of 4 years, USAID provided $27 million to assist returnees, providing food, transportation, school supplies, and help finding work. It has not yet assessed the effectiveness of these efforts, but has plans to do so. So We don't know, and I haven't followed up, whether these programs work in terms of helping people stay in their country. But it's not gift bags. It is supposedly carrying out the plans of what these people want, which is less migrants in this country, which is, frankly, we should be spending a lot more than $27 million. But go ahead.
Bags to illegals. $27 million. $330 million to help Afghanis grow crops. Like crops. I wonder what those crops are. What's their biggest crop, Brett?
It's going to be the poppy seeds for bagels.
Yeah,
Opium!
Pause it. Now, these guys are real brainiacs.
Look at that guy's
This
face.
program is literally to get, let's go to, he's finding all this stuff from a White House report, right? USAID, waste and abuse runs deep. Scroll down. Keep going to the Afghani thing. Keep going. Okay, hundreds of $1 millions. Here we go. To fund irrigation canals, farming equipment, and even fertilizer used to support the unprecedented poppy cultivation and heroin production in Afghanistan. Click on that. That goes to a Breitbart article. U.S. taxpayers helping to fund fertilize opium. Keep scrolling down. Go back up. This is in 2018. This is money that the Trump administration, now scroll down and you will find that they link to this program is, where is that? Oh, where this program was originally SIGAR, right, yes. Now the report, click on the report. The report doesn't exist anymore, so we went and used the Internet Archive to find this report. And here it is, counter narcotics. This was all about basically trying to encourage Afghanis to grow other crops. And it failed miserably because we destroyed their country. And you'll remember that Donald Trump then ended up making a deal with the Taliban. So this is from 8 years ago.
And they know, and that's why it frustrates me, all of this. Like, actually, it's a score on the deep state. Trump and all these guys, I mean, Brett Weinstein's pretty stupid, and so is Joe, but the aid that the, frankly, bipartisan members of Congress were saying, hey, Maduro, let this aid in. That was U.S. aid. That was like $30+ million.
Yep.
And it was for cynical purposes, frankly. But the idea that we should just hack all of it, that is sustaining life across multiple continents, is absolutely
What it does
absurd.
is it shows that this is a lie.
Yeah.
They don't care about USAID. They care about the destruction of the administrative state, and this was their low-hanging fruit. Just go a little bit more. And then he's just going to list other stuff for Afghanistan, but frankly, we destroyed the country.
Yeah.
And he's old enough to remember that when we went in there and invaded it, we said, we're not going to leave it like the Russians did. We're going to rebuild this country.
Wait till they hear about the Marshall Plan.
$200 million on an unused Afghani dam, $250 million on an unused Afghani road. This is wild.
Oh, so wild.
I mean, some of this stuff.
Just don't have to take it out. Like, the wild stuff should be the political influence stuff, but we're not hearing any of that because,
No.
like Sam said, they are going to continue that.
no,
Just
of
to
course
underpound.
they are. Of course they are.
Wild. I mean, some of this stuff is really, really crazy.
Tell me one.
Well, yes, and, USAID is, of course, riddled through whatever international madness it is that caused us to open our southern border and facilitate an invasion through the Darien Gap. So, seeing
Pause it.
that
If you understand what he was referring there, I'll give you a trophy. But USAID did not promote an invasion of our borders. Are you kidding me?
You just don't have
They
the-
literally just had like 2 minutes earlier. He said, "I can't believe they're paying $30 million over the course of 4 years for immigrants to reintegrate into their own societies."
Sam, they're giving money to Soros. Soros is funding people coming over the border. I don't know what's so difficult for you to understand. That's right? That's where that conspiracy
is trying to get them all in the country for
It's not just
great
the actual
replacement.
thing of
40
supporting
years so they
Guaido.
get the vote.
It's
Yeah.
not just supporting Guaido. Maybe we could draw like a more direct line. These guys exist to blur this issue.
100%.
I mean, and this is a prime example of what we were saying earlier. The great replacement theory is just mainstream Republican discourse now.
Without a doubt.
After Trump kind of introduced the topic into more of the mainstream in 2016, now it's like Brett Weinstein's just casually saying that right now.
Just give it another couple of minutes here, another minute or two. I know we're running late.
Through the Darien Gap. So, seeing that structure laid bare is it
Making all this
almost
stuff.
feels like it can't be real.
It's laid bare, but I don't know
it
if it's
can't
right.
have been
It can't
this
be
close
real.
to the surface, and yet here we are.
They were spending, is this number correct? I think the number that I read was $600 million every 2 months to ship in illegals.
Sounds right. I don't know the number.
That sounds right. I don't know the number. Does that sound right to you?
Well, you
Wait a
have to.
second.
You have.
So the U.S. government was spending $600 million every 2 years, was it, to ship in illegals? That does sound odd. It's strange, isn't it, that we would be doing that? Maybe someone should Google it. I didn't get this far into the video. Let's see. $600 million
Just to ship in illegals?
to
What are we doing?
ship in illegals.
Sending recruiters down there. Say, hey, Trendaragua, you wanna get out of that prison and come to America? We got some money for you.
Let's see. Oh, here it is. This is a fact check from MSN News. I don't know what this is, the Western Journal. FEMA. Americans were angered by the announcement of Homeland Security Mayorkas on Wednesday that FEMA does not have the funds to make it through, particularly in light of the $600 million it spent in migrant services this past year. So that maybe somehow this has got confluted. FEMA apparently has been doing this, not USAID.
And it's not shipping them here, it's dealing with refugees and migrants that come to our shores in part because, like, look at Venezuela. We caused that displacement. We did it. Look at the Center for Economic and Policy Research. Our sanctions of their oil industry caused not only the migrants to flee, but Trendaragua to spread its borders, it spread internationally.
I'm seeing in an Instagram, Joe Rogan exposes 600 million every 2 months to ship in illegals. That's what I'm finding. And people are like, that doesn't quite sound right. Like, there is no...
You knew he was lying the way he phrased it. He's like, I got this number right. Huh, Jamie?
What does that even mean? Why would USAID do that?
To replace Republican voters, Sam.
600 DHS announces the distribution of more than 77 million, and I don't get any of it. It's amazing.
They think that we should the only money we should be spending on the border is on bullets to shoot people that come close to it.
All right. I know. Look at the time. Amazing. Jonathan Armstead, Joe's knocks against an Iraqi Sesame Street is nonsense. For right or wrong, America has always used our TV shows and film to spread our cultural ideas. In the early 60s, the State Department arranged for interracial convict movie, The Defiant Ones, to be screened at a Moscow film festival with Sidney Poitier in attendance, because it would tell the international community in USSR that America was doing better on race relations than their propaganda suggested. I mean, yes, this is all just, it's amazing how much just absolute BS is coming out. And the Rogan part of it is just like one tiny element of it, but it is exactly why they went after USAID first. Because it was sort of like the easiest thing that they could sort of both demonize, make it sound reasonable. It doesn't impact Americans directly. And, you know, I think there's an argument as to how you message pushing back on this if you're the Democrats.
Yeah.
But
I mean, I'm kind of sold on it though. I mean, we want America to be safe, and America is not made safer by bombing people overseas, and I mean, it's hard for the Democrats to make that case with Biden, but some could. You don't even need to make that case. You can say America is safer when we help people. We don't just wage war. I think that's the lesson.
Ilhan Omar's introducing a new type of agency. I can't find the idea on it. I mean, the thing is it's going to have to be something entirely new. And it is going to have to not be, to the extent that we build something new, perverted by imperial issues, which is why, I mean, I don't think it's the main reason. I think like the Republican power overwhelmingly is why USAID's getting attacked right now. But like, we can't be doing the soft power, the nakedness, like it's not going to be trusted anymore. I think, frankly, after Gaza, like I think part of why this is so easy for these guys to turn their back on is, like Emma mentioned earlier, like the pretense of all this has been undercut significantly.
Yep. The whole notion of we're supporting the international world order, and we would do X in Ukraine, but then 180-degree X in Gaza made it much harder to sort of like maintain the loose fiction.
But people are going to starve because of this.
Denver John, Glum Day Monday, that's in the running. Dave from upstate, Morbid Monday. Sam, mark my words, anyone sent to Guantanamo will be back as prison laborers. Jim in PDX, F Billionaires has 11 more days to fund and is still 30% shy of its financial target. In my best Bernie voice, I'm once again asking to even a very brief guest on the one and only Majority Report. We will promote your show, your book again. We got a lot of news out there right now. Cheermaster. Apparently Fox replaced the broadcast audio of Trump getting booed with an applause track during the Super Bowl. Aesop's Fables. I work at a university in grants, so indirect costs are the costs that go towards the general administration of the project, as well as other overheads such as rent, internet, things like that aren't tied directly to one research project, but more to overall governance. It also covers salaries, benefits, stipends, etc.
Yep.
Morpheus. Hospital systems outsource digital conversion of medical records to third-party companies. Who is she kidding?
That's the other thing is we are seeing the culmination of the run the government like a business thing, and it turns out that's psychopathic and stupid to do.
God's still on the toilet. Some breaking news today. National Endowment for the Arts changes guidelines to restrict funding to Trump-approved propaganda and the Trump to become the chairman of the Kennedy Center. Mike from Texas saw the video of Hakeem Jeffries going around on X where he talks about Democrats being powerless. But the astonishing moment for me was watching him the other day talk to Jon Stewart for an hour with an almost blank stare. Dude looks, sounds, and acts like a robot. If I've ever seen on, sorry guys, I think we're screwed, but these guys are replaced. There's no reason for Schumer and Jeffries to be leading this party. If they didn't have a change of guards after the 24 elections, I don't know if they ever will. He was the change of guards.
It's corrupt interest. I mean, he was groomed and he has all of the same allegiances that we didn't like about Pelosi, maybe even more so.
Honestly, maybe worse, yeah.
Hey folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.